We're back with episode 2 of OnlyFantasy NBA podcast with all the explicit and uncensored fantasy basketball content. We've had an interesting week. My name's Dave, and I'm here with Shan.
Yo.
Nick.
G'day.
And Howie.
Hello, everybody.
And Howie was accused by one of the members of our league of being the cane corns of this podcast. It was one of the sickest burns I've ever heard. How are you feeling, Howie? How are you recovering?
Well, given that we've called Shan cane corns for many, many years now, conflicted. To be compared with Shan is good. It's a good thing. That's a positive. To be compared with cane corns is not a So
yeah, fair enough.
I think that means I'm a dickhead. But anyway,
no. I think the idea was that you're sensationalizing your content a little bit on the podcast, bro.
Yeah, a dickhead. What did I say?
I like it. All right. So surprisingly, we've had some fan mail sent in to us before we get into the meat of the episode from our adoring listeners. And I'm going to cover a couple of them. This first message comes from a user with the handle Derek Boy, and he writes, I once went to an Enya concert and I saw two men surreptitiously engaging in violent coitus in between two portaloos. Until now, that was the gayest thing I ever saw. Such a cunny funt. The only thing I have to say is this. Fuck you, Barry. I know where you live.
Yeah. Mate, ask Barry what he was doing at the toilets of an Enya concert anyway.
No, it's a question that needs to be answered.
What was he doing at an Enya concert?
I don't know. I get the impression he was trying to be funny, but it fell flat. This next message comes from a mysterious individual going by the name of L.O.
Could be anyone.
Let's just bring up this message. It's quite deep and emotional, so I want to make sure that I don't mess any of it up. So L.O. writes, "This podcast fucking sucks." All right. So I lied. Look, this guy's a friend of ours, and we want to maintain his anonymity. And so we'll just refer to him as Lawrence O. Wait, no, that's too obvious. Let's call him L. Ubaldo. L. Ubaldo's better, I think. Simple message from Mr. Ubaldo. This arsehole jumps up to second place in our fantasy league and starts getting ideas, thinks he's a real little fucking comedian.
Yeah, Dave, it's actually worse than that. He's on top, I think.
Is he?
Oh, Jesus.
And I can guarantee he's not trying. He hasn't looked at his team. He just happens to be on top. And he's played fuck all games as well.
Unbelievable.
I was going to say, was he pulled a Jamie Berry and played all these games possible? But no.
Kieran's played a few extras, but no, unfortunately.
He's killing it.
Yeah. Anyway, listen here, you little shit, Ubaldo. I know you're the one who left that downvote on our first podcast. How dare you? If you keep doing this, I'm going to come over to your place, chop off your tiny little penis and stuff it so far down your throat that people are going to think you have hemorrhoids.
Don't get that far down, man.
Can we say hemorrhoids?
I'm not sure. I guess we'll find out. So thanks to all our fans for your kind words and support. Really appreciate that, guys.
Feeling the love.
If you'd like to be part of the fan mail segment for future episodes, why not leave a message below? All right.
I'd just like to say what Barry said was actually very funny. I've got to give it up. I chuckled the first time I heard it, and I thought, that's funny. Well that's smart and funny.
Listen,
that was very good.
Don't encourage the prick. All right, it's time to get into the meat of the episode, and we're heading over to Shan at the news desk. You ready to go, Shan?
Yeah, ready to go. All right, so I'll cover off injuries and news this week relevant to fantasy basketball. So I'll go through the teams in alphabetical order, and I've got about 8 news items to bring up. So just quickly, at Atlanta, you've got Tubog again, Bogdan Bogdanovic out, but he's only a couple of weeks away, and we'll see when he comes back how that impacts the guard usage there. Trae Young and Deontay going off. Although, Nick, how many turnovers did Trae Young have today? It was
he got a triple-double. So
Trae Young
No. They call that the cripple-double.
The cripple-double, yeah. 10.
Yep, he'll be back in a couple of weeks, and then we move on to Charlotte, where LaMelo's out for another week. And Terry Rozier will be back very soon. So that's going to have an impact on Dennis Smith Jr. and possibly the usage of someone like Gordon Hayward. And then we've got at Cleveland, Darius Garland, who's been out for how long now, Dave? He's on your team. Is it about a week?
Went out in the first game of the season, played about a quarter of game time, and he hasn't been back since. So what are we up to now? Coming up on 2 weeks.
More to eat for Big Donnie Mitchell.
Exactly, and that's the fantasy impact. So when he comes back, we'll see what that does to Donnie Mitchell. That's just a bit of a peek into what I want to be talking about later.
It's interesting though that it's given Donnie a bit of a chance to bed in with the team. Yeah, we'll see what happens.
Even Karras got a 40p the other day. What's
he did.
that?
Yeah, that's nuts.
I almost picked him up, and then he had like 1 point the next game. So glad I didn't.
I mean, that's classic Karras.
A couple of minor injuries at Houston. We've got Fernando, can't remember his first name, Santo, who inexplicably is being started by Paul Silas instead of Sengun. So he's just gone down. So we'll see what impact that has. Sengun has, like, everyone thinks that guy should be starting. He's a much better player, but maybe Fernando.
Hashtag free to go.
Yep. Maybe Fernando allows more rim protection and that works, and Sengun's better off the bench, but we'll see whether Sengun's able to cement a starter role while he's out. And then you've got Jay Sean Tate aggravated a knee injury. Now, the reason I raise that is Nick might be interested here that could be an opportunity for Eason to perhaps finally get some of those minutes we thought he might get in the preseason where he looked really good. If he doesn't get minutes soon, I know you'll get worried.
Nice.
In the spirit of Halloween.
I can come back to watch
it's like a Japanese horror flick, isn't it?
Right, and then I'll struggle to keep Howie quiet on this one. Kawhi Leonard again.
Yeah.
Not playing again.
He's an Iron Man.
He's out for at least the next 2 games, so this is becoming a full-blown disaster. And in his absence, I guess Norm Powell's getting a little bit more of an opportunity usage.
I hear he had to take the next game off after filming that New Balance commercial with Jack Harlow.
Overstrained himself with that. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
You know, it's hard for me not to harp on about this, but
no, go for it, bro. It's all yours.
Kawhi has these championships. This is the thing. Herculean efforts at the Spurs and Raptors. And the Clips fans have all this energy. I'm a Lakers fan and Clips fans come at me. But that energy's misplaced. He's screwing you over. He is screwing you guys over. He is refusing to play. And then when he does get minutes in the playoffs, boom, ACL. Like, I'm no orthopedic surgeon. But maybe if you rest all year and you don't build your body up, I'm just saying.
Yeah. Fair point,
fair enough.
All right, then we move on to New Orleans Pelicans, and Ingram should be back any day now, which we'll see what happens to Trey Murphy, who's been really useful in that period. I think Trey's earned a few more minutes, but we'll see how that goes. Then at Orlando, we've got a really interesting situation where all the guards have been out, and it's a race to see which one's going to get back first and get an opportunity, because when you've got, what do you got? You got Suggs, Fultz, and Cole Anthony. There's 3 guys there who just suck up usage, and if one of them can get that opportunity, they could be useful. And apparently Suggs is really close, so he might be the first one back. So if you're looking for a hot pickup.
Yeah, I find that interesting because Suggs is not the one that they need. They actually need somebody. They need a lead guard, somebody to take over the ball handling duties, because at the moment they've got the 2 big guys, Wagner and Banchero, who are both basically playing point forward and struggling. Right, and certainly Wagner's struggling a little.
Suggs was more of a point guard in college. He has been playing more off guard, I think, by necessity, because he's been next to Fultz and Cole Anthony, who's been just ball dominant. So, if he got that opportunity, might be really interesting. Then we've got at Phoenix, we've got Ayton, who's out for a week, which means there's short-term opportunities for Biyombo or Jock Landale.
Jockstrap.
Both of them, really, yeah.
That's very much just about a 1 week sort of flyer guy. Sure. If you're streaming guys, perhaps.
Biyombo's been blocking a lot of shots.
Yep, he did really well last year in a similar opportunity. But he's boring as shit. So then we got 2 more teams to cover. We got Portland. We got Damian Lillard, who, what is he, 30, 34, 33? He's getting on, and he got a calf strain, which for an old person could mean a long time out, and he's missed 1 game already, but luckily it happened when...
Paddy Dangerfield.
If he's anything like our buddy Kane, did his calf at 19, did it every week thereafter, and he's currently 43. So,
look, I do like Kane, but I'm kind of reluctant to compare him to Damian Lillard at this stage.
In terms of calf.
Yeah, true.
He would like that being compared to Dame and Dangerfield.
He loves Dame. It's his boy.
Yep. Anyway, so Dame's going to miss a game, I think, tomorrow or the next day. So that'll be his second game out. And then the coach has said he'll return on the next road trip. The thing is, that's like a 6-game road trip. So that could mean he misses 2 games, 3 games, or 9 games. So we will see if you... Yeah, so maybe it'll be on the longer end there. So in the meantime, you've got Anthony Simons, who's just getting a hell of a lot more usage than usual. And maybe so is Nurkic or Shaden Sharp, if you're in a deeper league, getting a bit more opportunity. Then the last one I wanted to talk about is a bit of news and injury is at the Spurs. Josh Primo.
That's not really injury.
You want to go there?
It's news.
He's injured someone's eyes.
He is apparently a serial flasher.
Bit of Louis C.K. action, perhaps?
Yeah, I was thinking it was a little Louis C.K.-ish.
Yeah, and the guy's also, he claims he says he's dealing with stuff. I take that at face value. Yeah. And so we'll tread carefully around that. Obviously, the Spurs have gone serious enough to move on to a really talented young player that seemed to be going somewhere.
It's one of those things where you just kind of, obviously you wish him all the best with dealing with whatever issues that he has going on, but at the same time, I mean, kind of who knows the kind of trauma that he's inflicted on the women that he's been exposing himself to. So
that's true too. That's sort of shit.
So there are no winners out of this situation. Say that.
And that's not true. No, there are some winners. Trey Jones is now locked up all the point guard minutes. So
maybe another winner also involved in that. I think we might be talking about tanking a little bit later on.
Yes.
And Victor, wouldn't mind seeing. Well, I know Greg Popovich probably wouldn't mind seeing a few guys just unavailable. So
we're talking about tanking later on. It's the Carlton Memorial segment. Very good.
Yeah.
All right, and the last injury is Vassell, who's been out for the last 3 games or so, but he should be back very soon. And that is our news and injuries wrapped.
Can I add an injury?
Yeah.
Jalen Duren was helped off the court in the Detroit versus somebody game, maybe Atlanta. Been monitoring him, a really great young player, putting up some intriguing fantasy stats in the first week. He was in a real strife getting helped off the court. They're just talking about it as day-to-day for the time being. I suspect it's going to be a week or 2.
Yeah, and another one probably also worth mentioning, I'm really a little bit disappointed in you, Luke, for not mentioning it earlier, is Anthony Davis wanted to play 82 games this season, and I know. He's been pushing through like an absolute Trojan. He's been playing through some pretty serious back injuries. I actually saw Starvin Darvin was calling him over to the bench, and he waved him off at one stage too. So it's good to see he has got a little bit of toughness in there, and kind of maybe take a few notes, Kawhi. But yeah, he's pushing through.
Yeah, he's pushing through. He's missed a game. Embiid's missed 2. I think he's in good company with missing a game or 2. I hope that's how he can manage it. Darvin Ham says it's about pain management. If that's the truth, then we've got a real problem, I think, with Anthony Davis. No, in all seriousness, he does an injury on the court, and you think, oh, that looks bad, and 2 minutes later, he's dunking on people. So it's just always a grain of salt with Anthony Davis. I think pain, some people have a lower tolerance for pain. It's not a criticism. I think he's just got to manage that pain, do what he can, take a rest every 2 weeks if that needs to be done, have 62 games. I think a lot of fantasy managers would be pretty happy with that.
Yep, I think that's fair. I have one more piece of news. I don't know whether we want to dig into this too deeply, but obviously there was a big flare-up with Kyrie this week. It's a deeply sharing a deeply anti-Semitic video, and it doesn't appear as though there are going to be any major repercussions from that for him. Like, it seems as though the Nets are just the way Steve Nash is talking. He basically is like, oh, we all need to learn from each other, as though Kyrie's perspective, anti-Semitic perspective, is just one voice amongst the conversation on this issue that needs to be heard.
Good.
Come on, Steve Nash, give me a break.
Could you imagine if Jordan DeGoey had done this? But in all seriousness, this is what America is at the moment, unfortunately. Like, I have so much love for that country. I lived there for a while. And, people on the street don't think this way. This is what's interesting. But the idea that that kind of stuff is just part of the conversation.
Yeah.
Look, I thought we decided quite a long time ago that that kind of casual Nazism is actually not really part of the conversation. I'm sad to see it back, but
absolutely.
I think most people don't feel that way. I think 98% of people don't feel that way, and I think we just got to focus on the 98%.
He was asked about it, in one of the conferences. I think one of the ESPN journalists asked him about it, a social media thing, and this was like the first time it was actually mentioned to him, and he completely pied him off, gave him absolutely bugger all, and said, "What are you going to tweet about this? I can tweet about whatever I want. No one tells me what to tweet, and it's not really an issue." And just became really narky and like aggressive and really ignorant about it too. So he's not winning himself any of his dwindling amount of fans. I mean, fantastic basketball player, puts up some ridiculous numbers, but he's like the perfect example of just maybe less is more, from a social point of view. Or I wouldn't want to tell someone what to do with their life. They're young men with a lot of money and a lot of talent. So, you got to live your life. But yeah, dude, maybe keep some of those things to yourself.
I will say that I do think this is fantasy relevant because obviously the Nets are a little bit of a basket case. They only just managed to beat the Pacers today after being up by 24 points. And that was only their second win of the season. I mean, this roster and the situation has disaster written all over it.
Defense is poor. And defense is
shocking. And Kyrie has prize. He always seems to find a way to take a substantial break in the middle of the season. He has done for the last 3 or 4 years. I mean,
you can almost smell it, can't you?
So look, I think if you're an owner of that guy, you're forewarned, well and truly forewarned. Expect it to be coming. Maybe you can luck your way into him playing really strongly for a couple of months, and then you can trade him off to some full sap for his full value.
He's a good player though.
Oh yeah. But
and you're a Duke fan. What the hell is happening in classrooms at Duke?
I don't think you went to any classes.
Producing people who believe. Yeah, you're probably right. You're probably right. They probably didn't go. I'll leave Duke out of it.
Look, it's fair. They deserve to feel shame for producing such an deeply ignorant guy. But anyway, let's move on. So is that us done for news? Anything else, lads? We're good. All right, the new segment, Fantasy Line of the Week with Nick.
Cool.
What do you got for us, Nick?
Well,
what's he got?
I'm going to try and figure out how to share my video, and I believe it's this share screen button. Very mysterious. Sounds like a winner.
I say give that one a crack.
Can you see that?
Fucking works. No. Yes.
Hey, nice
well, Maxi.
Okay, so Luke's just gone from 6 to midnight because he's seen the fantasy line of the week is Tyrese Maxey.
Have a look at that.
What a bloody game that is. That is freaking astronomical. What the hell got into him? He is just an absolute villain. 9 3-pointers.
I like it.
15 of 20 from the field. Are you kidding me? 15 of 20 from the field.
That's nuts, isn't it?
75% is insane.
I was all over this guy in preseason. I watched him in the last month and a bit of last year when Harden and the full squad was available, and I was like, whoa, this guy is not slowing down. In fact, he evolved to work around Harden. I got to say, we're weeks away, I think, from him being the more impactful player compared to Harden, in my opinion.
It's a big call, bro, but I'm with you on this.
So I've highlighted, although this is the line of the week, it doesn't mean it's infallible. And I've highlighted he hasn't got any blocks. So what's going on, Maxie? Come on, mate.
Idiot swine.
You're better than that.
You let yourself down,
really, I say this is the line of the week because it's the first time we're doing it. So it probably captures a little bit over a week. So I've thrown in a couple of other really close contenders there just for perhaps if someone wants to say maybe they like Jar's game against Houston on the 22nd. 49 points, 2 blocks,
is good.
1 steal, 8 assists. That's 5 threes.
Oh, gee, that's almost better.
No, I don't think so.
Close.
Because that's probably slightly below league average for free throw percentage. So he's not getting a huge.
The reason I went with Tyrese, and it's very easy to go with the 2 blocks of Jar and slightly more points. He's got 9 3-pointers. He's got 75% from the field 65's pretty damn good, but 75 is something else. So,
and he was 10 for 10 at one point, just exploded out of the gates.
And Giannis is really unlucky because he's played 2 games that are pretty damn good. And I reckon if in that game on the 27th against Brooklyn, if he didn't have 7 turnovers, he might have even have had the top game there.
Yep.
Probably not, because if he got a couple more threes and a couple less turnovers, he might have had it. And his other game against the Rockets was pretty freaking
Where's Luka?
Special.
Where's Luka? Surely.
Okay, guys. Well, look, while we're on this subject, I've just thrown in a couple of other guys. So can we see this one? These are the honourable mentions. We've got the wise and talented Kyrie Irving, who's got 2 games in there too, and both of them are freakish games. Have a look at the one against Dallas. 3 steals, 4 blocks. Are you kidding me? 5 3-pointers. The dude must have saged the shit out of the court before that game because he's gone freaking bananas.
Sage power.
Yep. Luka Doncic.
The Illuminati was nowhere near the court that day. He was free to move.
Exactly. It was a strictly Mason affair. And Luka's gone bananas in a couple of games there against Oklahoma and Brooklyn. And you can see getting very excited there, young Gilgeous, the Gilgeous one. He's had 3.
What a legend.
But he slightly unzipped his pants a little bit. And I understand why, because this is out of control. This is like not primo worthy, but it's getting close.
That guy is holding my team together right now. I'll tell you what.
Yeah, I think he's the number 1 ranked player.
He is, indeed, yeah.
And you can see these like 9 out of 10 games. He's had 3 of them in the space of 4 days. So
his defensive stats are just off the charts. Unsustainable, but I'm loving it.
Well, unless we've got anything more, I know it's just the fantasy line of the week, but given we've had a bit of time since the start of the season, I thought I'd throw up a few.
No, I love it. Good stuff.
Tyrese is the number 1 for me.
Yeah, I think you did well. Perfect. All right, moving on. So we're going to do some movers and fakers. Got a fair bit to cover this week, so we're only going to just nominate 1 each. Shan, did you want to kick us off, bro?
Yeah, sure. I'm going to nominate Donovan Mitchell, currently ranked number 9, which is bloody awesome. But as came up earlier, I am attributing a fair proportion of that to his buddy Darius Garland being out. So I had a look at his numbers today, and compared to last season, he's up 6 points, up 0.7 3-pointers, up 2 assists, up half a steal block combined, and up 5%. So a huge thing, but sometimes that can be part of being traded. You don't know how they're going to fit into their new team. Maybe this is a team which runs a little bit faster, but I think it's conflated by him getting that. He's getting the role that Garland got last year, where he gets all the ball and he just distributes it to everyone and just gets everything. So there's that, but I'm not buying him as a first round kind of guy. So if you can sell him now, do so. I see him probably, what was he last year? I think he was 27. Yeah. No,
much
20,
better situation.
23 last year.
Yeah, he's got to be loving it. Like he's got all these players running around. He's got your Jared Allen and your Mobley there, who have got like they're finishers. They've got good hands. He's got some shooters. He's got Kevin Love that can come off in the bench and get out there on the wing and kind of space the floor for him. Yeah, it's just perfectly set up for him in particular.
And I think the other thing there is, unless I'm mistaken, he's played every season of his career under the same coach in Utah, right? Meth face looking guy. Yeah. Quinn Snyder.
I was going to go with Cobra Kai, bad guy looking guy. But yeah.
So, I mean, who knows? As you say, Shan, like there's a little bit of uncertainty here, like under a coach in a different system.
Yeah, but you guys don't want me to sit on the fence, so I'm gonna put a line in the sand and call it bullshit. He's
praise Buddha for that.
What's that?
I said praise Buddha for that. You're not sitting on the fence this week.
I like it. Finally, Shan, finally.
Yeah, so expect him to revert back to ranking somewhere in the 20 to 30 range, which is still amazing. But a good way to sort of tease apart, that doesn't seem like a huge call I'm making, going from 10 to say 22 or something. But if you look at the dollar values in an auction, what that is worth, it's a lot of value. He's currently just smashing it. And even if he's a little bit better than last year, I don't think he'll keep it up to this level.
I like it. Anything else on Mr. Mitchell before we move on?
No, makes sense.
Howie, give us yours.
Tobias Harris. He's throwing up an incredibly efficient line right now. He's ranked very high. I didn't check it after today's game, but he was 33 or 4 before today's game, and he had a blinder in a fantasy sense, in a 9-cat roto sense, which is what we play. A real blinder. But it's so deceptive. Shan, if someone's got the stats in front of them, there's a guy who's currently ranked 12th over the last 7 days in our league, available on free agency. He played 20 minutes for Memphis today. Laravka, is that his name?
Jake Laravia.
Jake Laravia. Everyone, go look at the stat line for Jake Laravia over the last 7 days, and it'll tell you everything you need to know about Roto 9-Cat fantasy basketball. His stat line has him 12th over the last week, Laravia, and really, he's done nothing. 6 points, 0 turnovers, 62% from the field. This is what Tobias Harris is doing right now. I don't believe it will continue. In fact, Tobias Harris is playing worse than he's played for 5 or 6 seasons, and I feel, efficiency aside, I feel like that's eventually going to catch up with him as Maxey, Harden, and MB continue to be ball hogs. Can see his rank dropping outside of 60.
I hadn't really looked at his stats, but yeah, it's a weird quirk where he's one less turnover and 1 more steal per game, and that's probably the vast majority of that value that he's picked up.
It's weird.
He's high for, I think, what has he played, about 8 games so far this season, and his highest ever turnovers he's got is 1 turnover, and he's done that in 4 games, or 5 games out of the 8, and the other 3 he's
1
got
or
0
turnovers each game.
This is 9-Cat Roto's issue, and Josh Lloyd, our savior, knows all about this. He preaches this every year, that you got to ignore turnovers because they're a stat killer. It ruins the ranks, and this is a great example of that happening, whether you're talking about Jake Laravia or you're talking about Tobias Harris.
Yep. No, I'm with you on that for sure. I think it's a good lesson for everybody to learn to devalue turnovers a little bit when you're putting together your stats compilations and projections at the start of the year.
I usually try and halve the kind of weighting on those ones if you're looking at those kind of
I think that's
ways.
fair. I mean, it's not like turnovers aren't a category. Obviously they are. But I think there's a very strong correlation between people finishing lowly ranked in turnovers and finishing right at the top of the league.
Yeah. And it should be said in head-to-head, if you're winning turnovers every week, you're not doing it properly. The goal in head-to-head is surely to stuff your team with stats and lose turnovers every single week.
Fair call.
Lock down 4 cats. That's what you want to do in head-to-head. Lock down 5 cats, I should say, sorry.
That's a really good call on Tobias Harris, Howie. I hadn't actually noticed his rank. As a Philly fan, I've been watching all the games, and I've been like, oh, this guy is... Geez, he's like last at the table to eat. He's not going well this season, and I see that rank and I'm like, holy hell. Yeah. So yeah, you're right. It's about the nuance of 9 categories and a few of the really unpopular categories, which is dominating.
Steals and blocks, he's going all right.
Yeah, but there's the kind of thing that you need to be judging it, I think, looking at early in the season. This is for me. You can tell me if you think that I'm wrong. Is things like usage rate and minutes, obviously. So, are they getting major minutes in a rotation, and are they being heavily involved in offense? A lot of this other stuff, like defensive numbers, prone to small sample size bias. So, yeah, I think that's what we're getting here.
Well, and Josh Lloyd's made the good point that statistically the category with the greatest variance across years is steals. Mm-hmm. So you could take that 2 ways. This might be Tobias Harris having a really good steal year that will never be repeated, so that's entirely possible. Or it could just blip back to roughly what he was doing previously. Who knows? Yeah. For me, I'd be backing a big drop for Tobias Harris. If you have him, sell now. He's hot.
So, I've got Tobias Harris. I'm open to trade offers from Howard.
And I'll be offering nothing.
All right, Nick, you're next up. What do you got?
Okay, I've got DeAndre Ayton. So Ayton's actually, I think he's a lot better than what he's actually being portrayed as.
I hope you're right, bro, because he's on my team. He's been shit so far.
So, I mean, look, you can kind of see he's a pretty predictable fellow, apart from the fact that I think he got a suspension for some kind of substance thing a while back, but he's past that now. Look, I like him to get a lot higher. I've got here, he's got currently sitting at 144th ranked in 9-cat. I think he's a lot better than that. I don't think there's too many people that would say that he's not in the top 60 or 50 or 40 even. So for me, the only way is up unless his injury turns out to be a lot worse than what it looks to be at this stage. At least
innocuous.
A week.
It was pretty innocuous on the day of the game, but who knows? It's his turnovers more than anything. He's always been such a low turnover player, and for whatever reason, he's just throwing the ball away a lot.
Well, that's the thing with centres. If they don't block shots, they're playing a fine little game there in trying to rank well if you don't get blocks. And his blocks over the last 4 years have gone 1.5, 1.2, 0.7, and then this year 0.4. So that's what's his rank is just.
Yeah, it's the Karl Anthony Towns paradox happened to DeAndre Ayton.
Yep.
Yeah.
The cat paradox.
There's still, I mean, my intention this season was to do a bit of a soft tank on blocks, and so that was one of the reasons why I picked him up. So I'm not expecting anything in that cat from him. I mostly just want him to provide me with points, rebounds, and a decent field goal percentage impact. And unfortunately, he's been turning the ball over like a freaking demon. Unfortunate. All right, I guess that's me. So I have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, the number one ranked player in 9-cat fantasy hoops based on averages.
He's going to go up.
Hey?
He's going to improve.
Freakish start to the season. Hasn't missed a free throw yet. Perfect 30 of 30. Shooting nearly 50% from the field. Over 30 points per game, in addition to every other category basically being up from last season. So I'm going to make a case for him maintaining this rate, and then I'm going to make a case against it. So the case for him maintaining this rate is that most of his numbers are almost bang on his post-All-Star numbers from last season after he broke out of a shooting slump at the start of last year. Now, there is also some crossover there with Giddey not being around. So I think that's something that we can look at. The case against his numbers, on the offensive end, they seem to take a hit when Giddey's playing, and he'll be back soon, obviously. Just day-to-day at the moment. Could be back next game. His current ranking's buoyed by ridiculous steal and block numbers. Unprecedented in his career, almost certain to drop away. And of course, as we know, he is a major shutdown candidate. So, I mean, I just can't see SGA keeping it up. But I think, on averages, not on totals, because I think he's going to miss a lot of games, but on averages, I could see him being a top 10 guy. He's been
practicing his free throws with Luka over the off-season, apparently. So, obviously paying dividends. Yeah, he's been. They did some free throw work together.
Yeah, he's
lost a lot of weight and started hitting a lot of free throws.
They give up the Bavarian pastries and they're just working on their game.
I think we need to. I think we need to keep a list of the massive calls.
Keep the receipts.
Podcast. Keep the receipts. 90%. Nick says 90%.
Record it.
Hey, can I just do a quick fact check / receipt bit of accounting work here with Luke? Look, you did mention Howie that I think you might have even laughed me out of town when I mentioned Santi Aldama was a guy on the radar, and I think within 36 hours you had him picked up and on your side. Granted, you dropped him the same day.
I dropped him 18 minutes later.
I'm thinking that was for show.
You called him the new John Conchar, I think was the call.
The Conch.
I did. But, I got an injury and so I had a spot. But, it was the wrong move. I mean, look, he was a guy to draw upon in case I needed that instant backup. But,
fair enough. Did you play?
No, I didn't. No,
okay, fair enough, Ed. I won't rub salt into that small wound.
All right, guys, what do we think? SGA, top 10 candidate? Definitely not.
Yeah, I think so.
Number one overall.
I think he's a good player.
I'm going to go and say that I don't think he's going to be ranked in the top 10 at the end of the year. But he'll be close. Like he'll probably be 12th or something. So yeah,
I'm going to say he is ranked in the top 10 on averages, but he may miss a lot of games.
I think he will. I think that's almost a certainty. Okay, so I mean that's that. Then we have that same advice for people out there. Like if you can get a couple of good, solid, strong months from SGA, and then you can flog him off to someone for near his ranking value, for a player that's a lot more risk averse, then you should absolutely do that if you can. Not easy to do. All right, time for a new segment as suggested by Nick last week, Irrationally Strong Opinions. Nick, have you got an irrationally strong opinion for us?
Look, I've got hang on. I do have a pretty strong opinion. I don't know whether it's irrational, and I'm going to try and justify it to you guys, and
Nice.
you can tell me if this is an irrational opinion or not.
Right,
maybe
we'll
just
do so.
maybe.
It's either rational or it's Kyrie.
So, drum roll, it's the big boy himself, Zion Williamson.
Good.
So, I've got a pretty irrationally strong opinion that he's not going to be a particularly great fantasy resource for a number of obvious reasons and some personal reasons. So, I have a lot of distrust in the Pelicans and the way that they're kind of sharing information about some of their players. Particularly last year, I got burnt. I picked him up a couple of weeks before the draft or before the season started, and he completely dogged it. I think at that stage they were saying, "Oh yeah, he'll be back for November." But yeah, no, with some kind of thumb injury, which wasn't too bad. So look, I worry about him. We all love seeing all of these kind of things that he does when he's flying to the hoop or he's, almost hitting his head on the ring trying to get a block, or all the athleticism in the world, which is brilliant. And that's why he was the number one pick. Problem is, he doesn't have a really great routine in terms of his diet or staying in shape or whatever all these professional athletes have to do to be the athletes that they are. Maybe he's turning it around. I really hope that he is, but my irrationally strong opinion is that he can't maintain this kind of physique that's going to require him to play 60, 70 plus games a year. I've got a bit of a rundown. Okay, so he's played 85 games in 3 years. His injury history is well documented. So in Duke, I think 2019, towards the end of his stay there, he did the shoe blowout knee injury that everyone's kind of seen. And then again, in his rookie year, he had a bit of a tweak in the summer league, so he sat out of that. And then in the preseason, he did his meniscus, and he missed 44 games in his rookie year. So look, that was really bad. Came in and started playing some games, and then just before I drafted him, bang, he's got a thumb sprain. And so missed several games from that. Okay, and then towards the end of the season, I think he had a Jones fracture, earlier on in the season, which made him miss the entire season. So that's the real concern for me. When you're a big dude who's jumping up and down and falling around all over the place, and you're 300 and whatever pounds he was at the time, it's gonna put a lot of strain for you. And if you've already done that kind of injury a couple of seasons in, good luck to you. Look, he was yet to play prior to this season. I understand someone's picked him up and, taken the gamble, and he's looking reasonable at this stage, 4 games in. So all the best to Zion, and all the best to all the GMs out there who've got him. For me, 4 games in, the injury clock is ticking, and it's now approaching midnight. He's got a 5-year contract, $193 million.
Good coin.
With a weight clause, right?
So it's got a weight clause.
He does,
So
yeah.
it does have a weight clause. So this is a dude that has been running around last year saying, "Oh yeah, I'm going to come back from a bloody broken foot at 319 pounds or whatever he got up to." So the weight clause is, in case anyone hasn't checked it, like I did this afternoon. Okay, so Zion must keep the sum of his weight and his body fat percentage below 295. So I don't know about you guys, but body fat percentage for a bloke like Zion, I'd be thinking maybe he's a little bit more ripped than he looks, and it might be, say, 15%. I don't know.
It wouldn't be that low.
Yeah, what do you reckon? Like 15 to 20?
Professional athletes are often below that.
Okay, so let's say he's at 15. So that means he's got to keep his body weight below 280.
Yep.
The guy was running around at 310, 319 or whatever it was. I mean, no one's really weighing him and putting it out there, so we're not going to know. Yeah, but the problem is it doesn't really hurt Zion. All this clause does is that if they waive Zion, they don't have to pay him out as much. So this is like worst case scenario. Yeah. The Pelicans are looking after themselves. Again, very shifty Pelicans. I don't trust them. I don't trust anything that they say about them. I've been burned by them in the past, and by irrationally or perhaps rationalized, tell me if you think that I've done the wrong thing by Zion here. I want him to play. I just think that it's fucking bullshit.
I tell you, okay, a couple of points I'd like to make, if I may. First of all, I love that picture from the Mountain Dew commercial. That's gold. Thank you, Nick.
Thank you,
Nick.
Yeah.
That made my day.
What about the one next to it with LeBron James's grandpa? I mean, Greg Oden.
Nice one. I appreciate that. The other point I wanted to make is that even if he does get himself up to full speed and becomes a regular NBA player, I just don't think his line is particularly fantasy friendly. Why have you got the cool guy glasses on, Shan? What is going on there?
I'm not happy with this topic. I'm the Zion owner, so I'm waiting for my chance to reply here.
He doesn't shoot threes. That was as you guys know, I'm a Duke fan, and that was my major concern coming out of college. He's not a three-point shooter. He doesn't seem to have the kind of form on his shot that indicates that he's going to be able to hit it. If I remember right, he hit like 4 threes in his first game.
He did.
And he's barely hit a 3 since. So, and also he doesn't get a lot of steals and blocks, like he
did in college.
He was okay in college, but he was not a good defender in college either. So there were some concerns on that end of the court. Look, we'll see. Maybe he can pick it up, but obviously the free throw percentage is a major concern as well. So I just think from a roto perspective, it's not an especially fantasy friendly line, even if the volume is there.
Yeah, I think, his value in auction drafts and his average draft position in snake drafts is not that big or high. So people factor that in. I think the potential when he was at 61%, 27 points per game in his sophomore season, there's something special about that. But I sort of agree with Nick. He seems to be a bit of an injury ticking time bomb where he gets those injuries and he goes home and tests the age-old question of who ate all the pies.
The answer is always the same. It was him.
All right. Am I up? Can I make my retort? Well, let me untie this Gordian knot. Nico, you fundamentally misunderstood the idea of an irrationally strong opinion, because what you've put forward is entirely rational.
Yes.
I actually think to have the other opinion would be irrational for all the points you've made. There's a lot, look at his history. You can't be expecting good things. It's a huge risk. This guy's the biggest gamble in your draft. This guy, probably Porzingis, both of them are on my team. But the signs were there. The upside is huge. I hear what you're saying. The signs were there by way of preseason pictures and stuff. It was very much, you've got skinny Zion out there. So his weight, he's got that in his contract now. I think he's working on that. There was a huge ESPN story recently where he's got someone who cooks for him now. So he's on board. So I like that as a positive sign.
Wait. He's got someone that cooks for him. Do they cook pies?
They didn't clarify, so yep, fair point. Maybe pies and gumbos
in the fast food restaurant.
In regards the 9 cap that you guys are talking about, yeah, absolutely, that's a huge thing. So, how many games has he played so far this season? He's only played in 4 games, and
he's 4 now, yeah.
And 3 games in. So prior to his last game, he was ranked at was 120 something. It was not good. And then in his last game, he finally had a good game and he went straight to 65. And there's the thing about Zion, he hits hard across a few categories, and it means his rank can just move really quickly. He can get those steals and blocks, but he hasn't done so since college. And so if they come along, I can buy into the irrational argument of the upside that you have to buy into if you're going to draft this guy. But if I'm going to be rational, you're 100% right, Nick.
Yeah, well, look, I bought into it last year. I was the guy who took the risk. There was a few people in the room who were quite happy to remind me after it was actually decided in auction that was a really bad pick.
that was worse though.
With our
yes
thoughts. That was the worst though. He was currently injured at that time. So you were drafting an injured player, and yes, the rumor was he'll be back really soon, but it was very risky last.
It was a thumb strain at that stage. So
Nick and I were bidding against each other in that draft, and I had an idea that I wanted Zion for about 15 and 16. I think I bid 15. I think Nick bid 19, and I've gone, holy shit. Yeah. That's the end of that, and everyone else just went away, and Nick got him, and I was like, "Oh, that's such a risk."
Mate, I just wish you had gone to 20.
I was never on the agenda.
Last thing on Zion, let me say this because this will come back to bite me, and this is me trying to be more controversial. Like I can imagine you're going to play this clip back to me later on in the season. Are any of his injuries chronic? And the answer will be no. He's had freak injuries to several parts of his body. The worry with Zion's injury is how explosive he is and his size, and that worries people. And I think that's more of a gut feel sort of thing rather than him, a guy with a lot of soft tissue injuries. So,
I don't think he's going to do permanent damage to any particular area, or maybe he's got just as much chance as the next guy out there. But I think the thing is the way that he plays, being the size that he is, he gives himself more chance of having these freak injuries.
Yeah.
So that would lean into one season. At one point, he's going to have this season where he goes off, and that's what I'm just closing my eyes and praying for.
Yeah, cool.
All right, guys.
It's been interesting because I got Brandon Ingram, and I was thinking, well, this is a huge risk because Zion might just run the show. It's been interesting that Brandon Ingram has actually run the show, and they've incorporated Zion into the system a bit more. Makes me think they're managing him a little bit. So maybe this is a year where he can play 60-plus games.
Okay, guys, so up to our last segment, final segment. So we're going to have a chat about tanking teams and the potential impacts on fantasy relevant players on those on their rosters, stuff like potential blockbuster trades, people getting rested, all that kind of stuff. So we've each picked a team, and who wants to go first? Who wants to put their hand up?
I'll go first.
All right, go, Howie.
Get in there.
I've got the Utah Jazz, I think.
Yep.
So they're doing a real bad job of tanking right now, and that is eventually going to be something they're going to want to fix. Because I'm pretty sure they're in the States for the giant Frenchman, and I don't think they'll be happy if they have so few ballots in the – ballots probably not the word, but so very few tickets in the lottery to get their guy. Currently, they've got Conley playing really, really crafty veteran ball. Clarkson – going well sometimes, although he didn't go well today or yesterday. Oh, bloody the Finn. Markkanen just dominating. Kelly Olynyk playing really, really well. I'll start with Olynyk. Olynyk has done this before, and it seems inevitable to me that one of the ways they'll peg him back is he shoots threes, good percentage clip, very efficient on turnovers, and he can get some blocks and steals and stuff. They will peg him back in minutes. That's what's happened in the past, happened at Houston, happened 10 years ago where he started his career at, I forget where, but he would have big stretches, Boston, and they'd roll back his minutes to sort of 24 and kill his value. I think they'll probably try and trade Conley very shortly. I feel like Markkanen stays and may have an enduring value at Utah over the journey.
He's a Utah guy.
They've said that they won't trade Clarkson, and that's the thing you say before you trade a guy.
Yeah, true.
So, and I see Sexton coming into a more prominent role in the wake of these trades, because I think the trades will mainly come with high picks and expiring contracts. So I think the current bench crop in Utah all have the potential to move into the starting lineup, and also Walker Kessler, I think, becomes the logical starting center-ish, although Vanderbilt is playing quite well. But I think they might adjust.
Not really a center.
Vanderbilt can play the 4, Markkanen the 3. I think Walker Kessler comes in and plays maybe 22, 23 Mitch Robinson-ish minutes. And I see Sexton taking a pretty prominent role as maybe the only real guard in their lineup once they rock a few trades. When will that come, though? This is the question I don't know. Do Utah at some point say, holy shit, we're 30 and 22, do we push for playoffs? Do we even make a trade that might allow us to make waves in the playoffs? Time will tell. I suspect not.
Yeah. Okay. No, I like that. I find it interesting that I did a bit of a contrast between Utah and Oklahoma City Thunder, and OKC are significantly further along the line in their sort of tanking, bottoming out, stocking up on young kids, and then going again kind of phase. Like, it seems to me that Utah has no commitment to any of the guys on their roster at this point. They don't have to care about, the culture of winning. They don't have to care about, keeping anybody on that roster, content or happy. So we could see all sorts of craziness. Like, you have to kind of chuckle thinking about Danny Ainge sitting back as these wily vets on the Utah roster snap off win after win. There's literally no value in these wins that Utah are getting at the moment. Like, what are they working towards this season?
Culture.
So
Contract.
It has to, I think, and you were asking the question, Howie, sooner or later. I think it has to be sooner, because every single win is getting them further away from Victor Wembanyama, and that's ultimately either Wembanyama or Scoot. What's his
Henderson?
Scoot Henderson. It's one of those drafts you want to get into the top 2. You can't afford to keep on winning games like this.
They got Dallas, LA, Lakers, Clippers, Lakers, and then Atlanta. So, yeah, I think we'll find out how they're going to look. A little bit of a more realistic view of it soon.
So who do you think?
I think it's factors, because I think Westbrook was a big element of what Utah were moving towards. Westbrook suddenly has played really well off the bench 2 games in a row. I just wonder if LA will pump the brakes. I know the Lakers are really, really unwilling to part with either of their first-round picks. I read an article in the LA Times during the week that I was telling you guys about, where they acquire, and I don't know the details of this. Maybe one of our watchers can help verify this. Something flows back to them from the Anthony Davis trade at the end of this season, potentially, likely, apparently. So they're then armed with another first-round pick. And if they trade, instead of just using their free agency cap space, which will be about 33, 35 million, I believe they can trade for players up to 41, 42 million worth of value. They might be hiring another max guy.
Is it a pick swap you're talking about?
I
one of the
guess
picks they owe Pelicans is not a pick that they're just giving, it's a pick swap. So if the Pelicans get their pick this year, they get the Pelicans.
Yeah, that's almost certainly right. It was Dan Walk in the LA Times. He didn't specify in what capacity that was going to happen. It's just that it was likely to happen, or almost certain to happen.
Yeah.
I'll look it up, and I mean, I like to do these deep dives on rosters and salary and that kind of stuff. So I'll look it up and see what I can find, Howie.
Cool.
Anything else on Utah? We'll probably have time for one more deep dive on a team, and we can hold the other 2 over till next week. Any other thoughts on Utah before we move on?
I think we've covered Utah pretty well. It's really weird. Like, just the whole thing about Utah is just that they're going good, and how long that's going to last.
Ridiculously good, far too good.
They shouldn't.
Yeah, no, and as I say, look, there's just no value at all in any of these wins that they're getting. Absolutely no value. So who wants to take the last one before we call it a night?
I can do that if you want, unless you really want to do OKC, Dave.
Yeah, I mean, I started talking about OKC, didn't I? So I'll do mine. All right. So they further progressed in their tanking cycle than most of these teams, and that makes their situation a little different. Their next contending roster is already starting to take shape. They're the youngest squad in the league, and unlike Utah or the Spurs, they're not carrying any mature veterans on their roster that they'll be trade out. Which is not to say that there won't be any roster upheaval, but it's more likely to come in the second half of the season when they start thinking about shutting down guys like SGA and Giddy. So they do need to be a little bit wary of pissing off the players they already have that will be part of their next contending team, unlike, say, Utah. I've written here that I wouldn't be surprised if no players on the current Jazz roster are still there 2 seasons from now. If they continue to force SGA and Giddy to sit out games, if they make the decision to they make decisions that continue leading them down a path of more losses, then that could negatively impact on the team culture. The last thing they want is a frustrated SGA demanding to be traded at the end of this season. So from a trading perspective, they don't have anyone to shift out, as I mentioned. The only 2 players over the age of 25 are Kendrick Williams and Mike Muscala, neither of which have any trade value. And in terms of trading in, unlike in previous years, they don't actually have any free cap space this season. They're close to capped out, so they won't be taking on any salary dumps for picks. So there aren't going to be any major acquisitions, so there aren't going to be any major outgoings. Fantasy relevant players, I've got SGA and Giddy as sort of finger cuffed, and it's a little bit of a tough situation to judge. If one gets shut down, then the other immediately gets a massive usage bump. This is a bigger deal for Giddy. SGA is going to be playable regardless. It's a matter of him sort of gaining a few ranking points if he gets the Giddy bump from Giddy going out. But Giddy could go potentially from borderline playable to a real fantasy asset. So there's a lot of risk here. My advice would be to ride SGA for a couple of months. I think we've spoken about this, and look to trade him if you can get back something close to his full value in a less risky asset. Giddy won't hold a lot of fantasy value without SGA sitting out. I don't think he's going to be borderline playable in Yahoo standard leagues due to his categorical weaknesses. He's just mostly percentage hits that you take on picking up his rebounds and assist numbers. So I'd say that there's not really any point in trading Giddy. You may as well just ride it out and hope it goes your way. Hope eventually SGA gets shut down and Giddy is the one left holding the ball. Lou Dort, close to unplayable currently in default leagues with all of the OKC players available.
That's the Allo special of the waiver wire, Lou Dort.
Yeah.
Our lovely commenter on our thing. He's a big fan of Lugens.
Is he? Very, very similar body shape. Only becomes interesting again if SGA sits, but I don't think it's worth holding on to him for that long to wait and see. I mean, that's potentially months away. But a guy to keep on your radar, Lou Dort, because if situations change, major roster upheaval, he could become playable. Trey Mann, another guy that probably goes from borderline playable to absolutely playable if SGA sits. Needs to improve his shooting percentages clearly across the board, but his usage rate of minutes would spike so significantly in that kind of scenario that I'm sure he'd be flying off waiver wires just on speculation. So definitely another radar candidate. And then I've got the 3 front court players that are unlikely, I don't think anyway, to be affected by roster turmoil. The Thunder's 4 and 5 spots are completely up for grabs for any of these 3 guys if they can prove that they deserve it. So JRE, what's his name? Robinson Earl, is that his name?
Yeah, James Earl Robinson.
James Earl Robinson. James Earl Jones. Had some moments last season when he was looking really likely. I was hoping he'd earn a larger role in the preseason, but it hasn't started that way. Worth keeping an eye on just in case his combination of threes, rebounds, and low turnovers, they make him a roto-friendly option with enough minutes. So if he can earn those minutes, then he can become valuable at some point this season. Poku, the great what if, the ultimate enigma player. A 7-footer that moves and handles the rock like a guard, has a fluid shooting stroke. When his confidence is up, he's got a bit of sauce to his game. Unfortunately, into his 3rd season, still only showing flashes. I don't think Poku is waiting for an opportunity to open up. I think as soon as he puts it all together, if it ever happens, he'll immediately be given as much usage as he can handle.
I want to see a UFC in the octagon match between Poku and Chet.
They would snap immediately like twigs, bro. That would
they can use their arms as stabbing weapons.
That's so true.
Little Terminators.
I am Groot.
Yeah. So yeah, Pokashevsky, the eternal radar, and then Darius Baisley, another guy with a fantasy-friendly game. Those threes and blocks combo that we love, but a guy that's failed to capitalize on his talent and opportunities over the years. But he's still only 22 years old. So
he's young enough.
Like Pokashevsky, if he can put it all together, the minutes will be there for him. But another eternal radar guy. And these guys there are the 4 and 5 spots on that Thunder's roster without Chet Holmgren. There's opportunity there for any of these guys to stand up and demand the minutes, but none of them have been able to do so. That's it, guys. What do you got?
All right, Dave. Do you even know Sam Presti?
Personally?
This team is going to tank. I'm not a huge believer in tanking. I think it happens far less than people imagine. But I think your concerns about them not wanting to upset Shea are overstated. I feel like they're going to go for it hard this year. They're going to want one of the big 2 or 3 players in this upcoming draft so that they can put them on the court next year. This will be their last year of doing it, and they're just going to be absolutely loaded with one of the stars from this year, Chet, Shea, Giddy, and the second really quick point I want to make beside I actually do think Shea could get anyone on this team, if they've got a cold, is going to miss games. And that's the form of tanking I think happens. So
you know someone that's got a cold.
Yeah, absolutely. The second point I want to make is the one guy I think you might have missed, at least what I'm hoping in terms of fantasy impact if they start doing this, is Jalen Williams, Jalen Williams, because there's 2 Jalen Williams on the team, who's come back for 1 game already. I think he's going to play tomorrow again. Watch him over the next few games, and his preseason suggests if he gets a lot of usage, he actually is a really good contributor across the board. So second half of the year, that could be a guy.
Cool.
You reckon when the Oklahoma on draft day, you reckon they called out the wrong Jalen Williams on the first time and just went, oh, fuck. And then it gets around again, they're like, well, he's still there. Jalen Williams.
No, I mean, knowing a little bit about, I mean, that's
definitely not.
That's very funny, but no. Only funny to think
Okay.
of, but they both of them were expected to go around about the spots at the end. Anything else?
Excellent.
Anybody on OKC? Any thoughts?
No, I think we've summed it up. I think all of us here, being the Aussies, would love to see Josh Giddey. Like, say Shea gets shut down, Dave would be heartbroken from a fantasy point of view, but we'd all be quite,
I really would.
quite pleased to see Josh get the reins for a fair portion of this season and just see more of what he can do, because he's a wicked player to actually watch. Very kind of good vision, all that kind of stuff. We know that. So that's my only.
We've been let down so severely by Ben Simmons over the years. Giddey is Ben Simmons' redemption for the country of Australia. All right, guys, that's it. Thank you. It's time to wrap it all up. As usual, thanks everybody for watching. And if you liked us, give us a like and a subscribe and a comment and all of that good stuff. And if you didn't like us, then why the hell are you still watching? We'll be back next week.
Stop leaving comments
with more awesome stuff. No. Give us the comments.
Actually, bring it on. I challenge you to top that Enya toilet cubicle comment, because it's pretty special.
That was
a good one. Who can beat it?
All right, guys. See you later.
Cheers, boys.
Bye.
Yeah.